possible for libraries.
International Falls, Marshall and St. Cloud are strong. St. Paul School Board members.
Smart technology. Genesis of Minneapolis. Luxury.
It's a morning edition from...
Good morning, happy Friday. It's a little after 7 o'clock and I'm just getting ready to head down to the gym, get my workout in this morning. It is extremely cold here. I think the air temperature outside right now is like -20 and that's not even including the wind chill, and it's supposed to basically be like this or even worse all weekend. So I'm kind of preparing to deal with some pretty brutal temperatures for the next couple of days. All of my windows are frosted over or like completely frozen, so that's fun. Today I'm also 1 week into this Parasite treatment. I have a couple updates on that, as well as kind of an interesting update from the oral surgeon that I talked to whenever it was 2 weeks ago about the apparent cyst that showed up on my scan. So I'll give a couple updates on those things a little bit later, but first gotta try to get a little bit warmed up and then head down to the gym. It is a little bit later. I've just been sitting at my computer for a couple of hours and need a little break from staring at a screen. So figured I would do a quick update on the Parasite protocol and also an interesting call I got yesterday from the oral surgeon that I saw a couple of weeks ago. So like I said this morning, today is 1 week into this Parasite treatment. And I mentioned at the end of my last video that I had one kind of weird side effect and also some things that I felt like had already been beneficial. And I definitely still feel like I have had quite a bit of relief of my persistent gut symptoms that I had especially been noticing in the last several weeks, but really ongoing for quite a long time. Maybe not completely gone, but a noticeable difference and a lot more comfortable just on kind of an everyday basis, like not feeling my whole low back and just kind of like pelvic area felt really tight or kind of restricted and often just bloated, uncomfortable. And I feel like that sensation has gone way down, which has been really nice. I guess the key will be to see once I finish this protocol. Well, for one, does that continue throughout this whole thing? And then once I finish, does any of that come back, or is this potentially resolving some of that more permanently? Obviously won't know that for quite a while, but even just really grateful at this point to have noticed a significant reduction in that discomfort. The sort of weird side effect I mentioned of feeling a little bit dizzy or kind of disoriented, especially when I first get up in the morning or I'm in like bright lights, and how I wasn't totally sure if that was what would be considered a pretty normal side effect of feeling a little bit of dizziness, or if it was more of a side effect of my eyes actually being affected and like what they might consider vision changes, which are definitely more concerning. It's still been hard for me to kind of figure out like chicken or the egg here. Like, if my eyes affected and that's making me feel sort of disoriented or dizzy, or is the feeling of just being a little bit dizzy that can often feel like your eyes aren't totally tracking right, or like the sensation can feel like it's coming from your eyes, if that makes sense. In any case, I had sent a note to my doctor just trying my best to explain in words what I was experiencing and asking her thoughts, like did she want me to stop taking that medication, because there's 3 medications that I'm taking and one of them in particular that has this vision change side effect as a red flag. So I sent her a message. The day that I sent her the message, I decided to just skip that medication for a day to see if the symptom went away, because I was a little bit concerned. Like, if it is a vision thing, I do not want to go down that road if that's potentially like a really negative consequence. So just to be on the safe side, I skipped that one medication that day. And I did notice that later that day and also the next day, I was not experiencing that same sort of disoriented feeling. So then the following day, I tried taking a smaller dose. So I had been taking 3 10 milligram capsules of that medication once a day. So I tried taking just 1 10 milligram capsule because I hadn't heard back from my doctor yet about her recommendations. I kind of know from working with her long enough, and I know she trusts me a lot to make some of these decisions or like experiment a little bit if I need to. So I tried taking just 1 capsule, and I did notice the symptom returning a little bit, not as strongly, but still was there even on a much smaller dose of the medication. Although I will say, when I was on the smaller dose and I felt the symptom come back, it did feel more like a dizziness kind of thing than like an eyesight thing. So maybe that's a good sign. Maybe it is just more of a normal side effect of this medication. But you know, you don't want to mess around with your vision. So I want to proceed carefully, and I should hear back from her today about how she wants me to proceed. And in the meantime, I can obviously keep taking the other things that I am not experiencing any side effects from, and we'll see what she says. And I am only a week into it, and I have like 1 more week where I take the medications every day before I start to stagger it, where I do 3 days on, 4 days off. So potentially, because I'm not going to be on it long term, maybe it's okay to keep going with it. Maybe I would like adapt to it over time and not have that side effect anymore. I guess I'm not totally sure. I'm sure she has more experience with people using this medication and can give me some guidance on it. But in other news, I did get a call yesterday from the oral surgeon that I saw, I think it was 2-ish weeks ago now. So she had originally said that getting a biopsy of this cyst or whatever is showing up in my scan would be the next step, just to rule out anything other than a benign cyst and make sure there isn't anything more serious going on in there. But she had also requested that I send over the surgical notes from my jaw surgery, because she wanted to see what was done and if they had used any like bone grafting material in there. Thankfully, I already had all of that on hand. I have a lot of my medical records like on my computer, which has really come in handy, because there have often been times where in situations like this, somebody has wanted to know like, well, what have you done previously, or like maybe with a surgery or other specific interventions, wanting to know specifics of something. And for the most part, I have all of that information ready to go. I even have, it's a little bit of a tangent, but I actually many years ago requested all of the medical records from my birth. This is something I also talked about in my previous video, that like I was born really early and I had a lot of intervention in like the first several weeks of my life. And I was just really curious, like what actually had gone on and what medications I was given and what issues were treated or whatever. And it was so interesting to go through all of that. It was a little bit of a hassle to get it, because I think they had to like scan really old records into the system, and it was all handwritten notes from nurses. Like, could barely read it, but it did give me a really, really good picture of like what my first, I don't know, 8 weeks of life were like. So anyway, if you ever want to go on an interesting adventure, just like request all your medical records. You can get those pretty easily. Okay, so I had passed along the notes from my jaw surgery to this oral surgeon, and when she called me yesterday, she kind of had a different interpretation about what might be going on, because I did have some like basically artificial bone put in the gaps when my jaw was moved forward. It was a pretty large advancement, and there was enough of a gap there that to aid the healing process and make sure that like everything is stable, they put in hydroxyapatite, which is, I believe, like what your bones are made up of naturally. So they use that to fill in the gap, so that then as your body heals, like your bone like grows in there and you actually grow bone in that area, but it's basically like support in the meantime. That's my understanding. I guess it doesn't really matter for this story, but anyway, she was saying that because they use that material in there, instead of a cyst, she thinks it is likely that there just was some bony growth, like basically that the bone continued to grow in that area, or like particularly in this area around my right sinus. Probably also because there was some additional trauma when I had the plates taken out, and like anytime you cause trauma to bone, it can kind of be stimulated to grow. So she thinks that this is more likely a bone growth, and so doing a biopsy would actually not be necessary. I had asked her, like, would it make sense to wait and kind of monitor this and see if it continues to grow, when we were still thinking it was a cyst. And now that she thinks that it's more like surgical related or bone growth and doesn't think we need to do a biopsy, she did say that we could just sort of monitor it, see if it continues to get bigger, and if it does, we might have to talk again about what that means. She also said that we could proceed forward with Invisalign at this point. She didn't think that there was a problem with that. There may be a small risk that moving teeth could continue to stimulate that area and cause more bone to grow, or cause whatever that is to get bigger. I guess that's kind of hard to know. And like, I know the Invisalign that we're doing right now is very, very subtle. We're not like moving my teeth very much at all. So my hope would be that my orthodontist would agree it's not really a big enough risk to make us stop doing the Invisalign. So that all felt like very good news to me. I felt a huge sense of relief knowing that pursuing a biopsy is not seem like a necessary step right now, and that basically we don't need to do anything other than kind of monitor this and maybe do another scan in 6 months or so and see where we're at, which, you know, again, could be a problem that is still needing to be addressed in the future, but at least for now, I feel like I don't have to worry too much about it. I do still have a second oral surgeon consult next week, and I will still go to that just because I would like a second opinion, and I would be curious to see if this person has the same thoughts or any other ideas or concerns. I just think it's always good to maybe have a second opinion on this kind of thing. And also, if there were some need for, you know, a surgery or something in the future, to have another person that I can consider. So we'll still be seeing the second oral surgeon, get another opinion. Hopefully he'll kind of have the same idea and we won't really have to do anything right now. And fingers crossed that whatever this is just doesn't continue to grow or become a bigger problem. I've only been in the sauna for a few minutes, so I haven't really started sweating yet, but my goal right now is to be in the sauna 4 days a week. That seems to be like the minimal dose that research shows to be effective for a whole bunch of health benefits. For the most part, it's pretty manageable for me to get in the sauna 4 days a week, so that seems like a pretty good compromise to me. I think maybe ideally I would be doing this every day, just given my struggles with detoxification and really high heavy metals, and that using the sauna for me is a safe and effective way to help my body, hopefully in the long run, detox some of the heavy metals. But it is fairly time consuming. Like, I have to wait for it to heat up. I have to remember to turn it on, let it heat up. I have to get in it long enough that I am actually sweating. I have to shower afterwards, all of that. So 4 days a week seems to be manageable for now, and that makes me feel like I'm still probably getting a lot of good benefit from it. The other thing I do before I get in the sauna is to apply some castor oil to my abdomen and my liver. If you've never heard of doing castor oil packs, I feel like they're kind of getting more well known now, maybe less like considered alternative medicine, but castor oil is very anti-inflammatory and can actually be absorbed like all the way through your skin, and it can be used as like a gut healing and or liver detoxification aid. And when I first started working with my naturopath, castor oil packs were one of the things that she recommended that I try. And like doing an actual castor oil pack where you would like pour castor oil onto a piece of flannel or an old towel, or now there are actual like wrap things that you can buy and wear specifically for this, kind of helps contain it because it is sort of messy. It's an oil and it like can get on everything and will stain things and stuff. But the idea is that you sort of apply it to your belly, your intestinal area or your liver. You can also do other areas like your thyroid, anywhere where you want to promote healing and kind of reduce inflammation. So my version of it, that at least for me is just a little easier, more convenient, is to literally just rub some castor oil on my abdomen and my liver before I get in the sauna. Heat also does help it kind of absorb. So it's kind of a 2-for-1 detox support here with the castor oil and the sauna. And yes, the castor oil does get all over my bathrobe, but that's just why I specifically have this one for sauna use, and I don't really care if it eventually gets kind of destroyed. But that is my current sauna routine. 4 days a week. I'm usually in here for 30 or 40 minutes. It just kind of depends on how warmed up I am. That's why I often will try to like hop on the treadmill or go for a walk or do some kind of light exercise beforehand and like just get my core temperature up. Maybe even start to sweat a little bit before I get in here. The goal is to sweat as much as possible, and if I get in when I'm cold, it just takes a lot longer to warm up. But usually once I start sweating, I try to stay in for like 20 or so minutes, and usually that ends up being a total of like 30 to 40 minutes in the end. And that plus the castor oil, I feel like I am doing what I can to support my detox pathways. If you've never tried tongue scraping first thing in the morning, once you start doing it, you'll wonder how you ever could have not done it. Insanely cold out, but the sun is shining and I still want to get my morning sunlight. Well, despite the extremely cold temperature, I am going to venture outside my house today. I am heading over to the gym to meet a client for a training session, and then I might try to run a few quick errands while I am out, but the wind chill right now is like -25, so it's very possible that I will just come right back home after I'm done at the gym. It's a little bit later in the day. I just took my midday medications, but yesterday I did get a message from my doctor about kind of the weird side effect I've been having and how she wants me to proceed with that. And it's basically kind of what I already tried, but just a little more precise way of doing it. So she suggested that I take a pause from the medication that we think is causing that side effect for a couple of days, see if that symptom goes away completely, and then reintroduce it at the smallest dose that I can and kind of see what happens from there, and just to keep her posted on anything I notice, and then we can figure out whether it is that medication that's causing it and like at what level I might be able to tolerate it. I did kind of try that for one day, like I took a break from it for one day. I felt like the next day the symptoms had really cleared up, and then the next day I tried taking just a small dose of it and felt like the symptoms reappeared. But I'll do it again this time where I take like maybe 2 or 3 day break and make sure that I really am clear that the symptom is gone with that medication not on board. And then when I do reintroduce it, I think I'll be able to tell a lot more, like if it does come up like immediately after taking it. So we'll see how that goes in the next couple days. I'm supposed to just let her know anything that's happening, and then we can decide what we want to do moving forward. I got a package delivered today that was actually basically a birthday present I ordered for myself, and it is this paper flower bouquet. So these are actually handmade paper flowers. I just thought it was so nice to have something that like looks quite realistic, will last forever. And I always love having fresh flowers, but especially here in the winter can be kind of a challenge. And I just thought these were so pretty. And it's like a woman-owned small business, so I will link it in the description box below in case anybody is interested in checking them out. Okay, it is now just before 11 o'clock on Monday, and I am about to head into a therapy appointment. I know I've talked a little bit before about therapy, but I actually started seeing a therapist, this same therapist, in 2012. So wow, like 14 years ago. And it was at the very, very beginning of kind of my health journey when my symptoms were first starting and were kind of the most intense, and I really didn't have any idea what was going on at that time. I just knew that I was exhausted, I didn't feel good, I had lost my period and hadn't gotten it back for a really long time, and I had been going to just like whatever general practitioner I had at the time, because this was way before I was kind of getting into like health and fitness. I think I had just finished my personal training certification and was becoming more interested in nutrition, but didn't really have like anywhere near the like education I have on, I guess, health and wellness and fitness and nutrition and everything that I do now. So I had just, gone to my regular doctor and was kind of like, this is how I'm feeling. I figured they would do some tests and tell me what was going on and help me fix it. But basically what happened was I just kept getting sent from doctor to doctor, and they maybe sometimes ran some tests, but they would always just like run basic blood panels and tell me that everything was normal and that they didn't know why I felt that way, or they would basically offer me antidepressants or birth control. That was kind of the other solution. And I knew I didn't want to go on birth control. I didn't want to like take medications. I wanted to figure out what was actually going on. And I really, really felt like something physically was wrong, and I wanted somebody to help me figure out what that was. But anyway, the reason that I actually decided to start seeing a therapist was a little bit to like prove to the doctors or other people who were essentially asking me if I was just depressed, if like the symptoms of fatigue I was feeling were because of more of a mental health issue, which I totally understand can be the case. And a lot of those things can look very similar or be intertwined. And I'm not saying that like I didn't have any kind of like mental health component to all of this, but I was so certain that what was happening was some kind of physical issue. And so kind of in an effort to like rule out depression or some kind of more serious mental health issue, I started seeing a therapist. And obviously I'm still seeing that therapist, so it ended up being just so helpful to have somebody who could help me navigate through just like the ups and downs and the challenges that come with chronic illness, and like the process of trying to figure out what it is while you feel really terrible and not getting answers a lot of the time, or having to kind of keep moving forward, trying new things, or putting more effort in even when you feel like nothing is really working. I've just learned so much about like how the brain works and kind of our mental thought processes, and like how to manage my thoughts and emotions, particularly around my health or how I'm feeling physically and all of that. So what started off as maybe a little bit like, I'm gonna prove to people that I'm not just depressed and that what I am feeling is actually happening to me, turned out to be like one of the greatest tools in my toolbox, I guess, and just like another person that I feel like is on my team and helping me move forward in this process. Hello, good morning, happy Tuesday. I guess good afternoon, it's like 12:30 now. Just got back from my IV appointment, and while I was there, I had a chance to chat quickly with my doctor about the Parasite protocol and kind of the medication that was potentially giving me this weird side effect. I just gave her a quick update and then kind of clarified how she wants me to proceed. So I paused the 2 medications that we thought, well, there's one medication that I assumed was causing the side effect because it was the one that had vision changes listed as a potential side effect that is something to be more concerned about. But just to be safe and be really clear about which medication or like what is causing what, I paused both of the medications. These are the 2 that I'm taking midday that are the anti-parasite medications. The other one that I'm taking is more of an antifungal. It's something that I've taken before, have not had any side effects from, so not like assuming that that is a problem at all. But these 2 anti-parasite medications, more likely to be causing the side effect, I paused both of them for like 48 hours to make sure that that symptom completely went away, which I feel like it has. And now I'm going to reintroduce one of the medications, the one that we think is not causing the problem or less likely to be the culprit. I'm going to try taking that one again today and for the next couple of days, as long as that symptom does not come back. Then I will reintroduce the other one that is more likely to be the one that was causing that problem, and I will reintroduce it at a lower dose to see what happens. And I'm really hoping that I am able to tolerate both of these medications, because another really interesting thing that I've noticed, I mentioned that as soon as I started this protocol, I felt like I had kind of immediate relief of a lot of my gut symptoms that have been really persistent. I've been kind of explaining it as basically pelvic pain, because it essentially feels like my belly button down, like all the way around my pelvis and my low back, just feels tight, feels uncomfortable, feels a little bloated at times, and it's just a general sense of discomfort. And that really went away. Like, I really noticed a difference as soon as I started taking these medications, considering that the 2 anti-parasite medications are the only ones that I have not taken before. Kind of led me to believe that like those were doing something beneficial. So I really would like to be able to stay on them and like complete this full protocol and see if it has lasting effects. Obviously, I don't want to do anything that like could cause a potentially harmful side effect, but if that, even if the sort of weird dizziness slash like visual change symptom, if that were definitely just a temporary thing while I'm on the medication and we knew that it was gonna go away as soon as I stopped, it's not really bothersome to me when it was occurring. It was a little bit weird, but nothing that actually was interrupting my day. But it just is something that like if it could potentially get worse or cause some kind of permanent problem, obviously that's different. So anyway, now that I have paused those 2 medications for about 48 hours, all those symptoms came back almost immediately. So I have the pelvic pain again, I feel sort of bloated, I have low back tightness. It just immediately was noticeable again. So I'm curious to see, just trying this one medication today, reintroducing one of them, if I notice any difference in those symptoms. Fingers crossed that I don't get the weird side effect and that I can at least keep taking that one, and then in a few days, assuming I'm not having any problems, I will reintroduce the other medication at a lower dose and see what happens then. So that is going to be the plan over the next couple of days, just continuing this little experiment to figure out what I can tolerate or what is causing that weird side effect, and making sure that I find a dose or whatever that is tolerable for me, and then continuing forward with this protocol for the next several weeks and seeing how things play out. So I think I'm gonna end this video here, and then we'll start the next video with a little update on how this reintroduction phase is going. And at the end of this week on Friday, I also have my second oral surgeon consult, which hopefully at this point will be like not super necessary, but you never know. This person could have a totally different opinion on what is going on. So that will also be coming up next week. I really hope you'll stick around. You can subscribe down below. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next week.